In 1936, Dale Carnegie wrote the classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and it continues to reverberate as probably the most read self-help book out there, used by many effective leaders. Now, with Midwest Furfest coming up, I was checking to see if he had any advice for furry conventions, but he really seems to have missed the boat on that. I did find this quote, so maybe he was a blue dog all along. But with that in mind, I decided to fill in that gap. And I know what you're all thinking. Whoa, a dude in a carpet giving advice on social skills? Clearly they're such an expert. Sign me up. And look, I'm a regular guy, aside from the choice in fashion and hobbies here. But I've been going to conventions for a long time and have made many friends along the way at them. And for people relatively new to going to conventions, I wanted to share a little bit of a reality check, especially with a con like MFF right around the corner and the possibly disgruntled aftermath for people. If you're like me and not fending off crowds of people just wanting to be your friend, maybe this will help. And before we get into this, let's lay out the ground rules. Point 1. This is advice intended for adults. My imaginary team of lawyers have advised me that a "Hey kids, here's how to talk to strangers" video is probably a bad idea. So all of this advice is intended for adult people. I'm really not going to be much help for kids anyway. I'm just an old person and I have no idea how you kids interact anymore. And I am not even going to pretend that I do. Is Roblox still a thing? Is Fortnite? Is there an amazing digital circus RP forum yet where your circusona can happen to be a furry? Beats me. Point 2. If you're watching for "Here's 10 tricks to get everyone to like you," pop psychology bullshit, that's not going to happen either. If you're already looking for cheat codes to get people to like you, maybe you should start by asking yourself, why do you feel you have the right to cheat on that? Just saying. Part 3. This is not dating advice. Really. Coming to me for that would be like going to insert reference here for insert reference here. Y'all on your own there. So, without further ado, Part 1. Before you get this all wrong, if you've never been to a convention before, especially a smaller one, and you only have videos or first impressions walking in the door, you're likely to get a picture of some instant affection festival. You walk in the door and it's just people hugging it out in the lobby, like some bizarre cult initiation love bombing. And your first thought is going to be, hey, what's wrong with me that I'm not part of this? It's probably not what you think here. Remember, conventions and communities have been at it for years, and this may be friends who haven't seen each other in person for over a year, on one weekend where everyone wants to maximize their time together with friends. You are walking into the middle of an established community, reuniting after some time apart. It's like you're walking into a family reunion, and you won't be family quite yet. And that's okay. And I know some of you are rolling their eyes at this glorious revelation, but seriously, it's a problem. It's why cons had to put very explicit instructions on conduct with strangers, often because randos misinterpreted action between friends as standard conduct. Just ask any anime con about the no glomping policy, or cosplay photography policies that make sure you understand just because someone else is taking someone's picture doesn't mean you can without asking. So yeah, you've got some uneven footing here, but I just want to be real here. If you walk in somewhere not in fursuit and strangers are immediately approaching to hug you, you've probably entered a cult meeting, or you should check for your wallet afterwards. And all of this isn't bad news. It's to not load you down with some unrealistic expectation here, that every new person enters as a celebrity except for you. And also, because this will inevitably come up, no, you do not need a fursuit or costume or outfit to attend or make friends at a convention. Do they start conversations? Yes, but odds are you can't finish them in a full suit anyway. I'll talk more about that later, but ultimately you gotta realize they're making friends with the person under all that suit, hopefully. Heck, if this is your first time going to a con, you probably want to save your suit until you've got a feel for the goings on anyway. Just enjoy the vibe. Now with all that out of the way, Part 2. I've got good news and I've got bad news. Let's give you the good news here first. If you're at a con, you've come to the right place to find people that share your interest. Presumably, you're here because you like what they like, be it furry, anime, sci-fi, or politics, and that gives you an easy first step to meeting new people. For the furry folks out there, this is especially true if you're not comfortable sharing this with your real-life friends. 20 years ago, anime and comic nerds were in the same boat, but capitalism stepped in, and now it's much more socially acceptable than before. Who knows? Maybe your time will come if Disney can figure out how to make money off your fursona. Also good news, people generally come to these events expecting to be social, including with future friends. Now they may not be good at it, and they might get lost in the crowd, but you are in the right place to meet. Finally, you have events and activities to help you find other people. Panels about your interest of choice, competitions, even volunteering at a con can all be a great way to get to know people that share that life niche. Now for the bad news. Remember in part 1 where I said these are friends trying to make the most of their time together with their friends on the weekend? Ooh, callback. Well, that can make it tough because there are people who already have plans together, and you're in danger of appearing to be the scrappy do in their mystery gang, whether you mean to or not. They may have time to stop and hang with new people, but plans and existing friend obligations can make that tough. So just be aware, you have to pick your spots. There's going to be established friends there, and you might have a hard time diving into the middle of one of those. Building off of that, if I had to make a major point in this part, it's that smaller cons are usually better for meeting people. Like seriously, there's often less to do, and the lowered expectations of the event mean people are more chill, not running around trying to see everything because it's been 2 hours and they've already seen everything. I know y'all want your first con to be MFF or something, and it's great for events and for seeing everyone, but it might not be the individual social experience you get at a smaller event, just saying. I made some of my closest friends at outright bad events because we were all bored with nothing to do, so we just kind of had to get to know each other. Like I've always said, you go to big cons to meet all your friends, and you go to small cons to make new ones. And if you are at a big con, seek out the smaller events in it for the best shot of making new friends. As with everything in this video, this is a personal observation and may not be your experience. Let me know in the comments if you think bigger cons are better for meeting new people and why. And I will say, as an old person aside, smartphones have mostly killed off the time-honored tale of, I met my friend because we were stuck in line together for 3 hours, and we had to get to know each other. Like seriously, I've ended up at the weddings of people I first met because a badly organized event crammed us together for 4 hours without a smartphone. Now we just post TikToks in line on how bored we are. It's a hard habit, and I know I'm guilty of falling into my phone when I'm waiting for stuff now, but do you really want to spend your whole weekend at a convention that you've paid good money for, scrolling TikTok? As for events, they are a great place to meet new people, but that also depends on the activity. While you might be making new friends waiting for the concert to start, you probably don't want to be the person who wouldn't shut up and let me enjoy the concert story. So pick your spots there. Panels and events catering to your specific interests are always great too, because you may be able to join a whole new sub-community there. Or games and contests, particularly ones where you form teams, are a great way to instantly put yourself into a group dynamic with others. Have fun with them, and who knows, you might walk away with some new friends. So yeah, go to a furry con, make furry friends. Right? Now, I'm just going to pause for a second and bring up one itsy bitsy counterpoint here to this whole let's make all my furry friends at my furry con plan. On a higher level, and this might sound counterintuitive, furry cons make some things easier, but some things harder when it comes to meeting new people. For that, I present to you a story. A girl I knew back in the day had gone to a speed dating event held at a big anime convention, and the thing that baffled her the most was half the guys leading with, I like anime. She's like, you're not really saying anything there. And I totally get this because usually this might be something you have to introduce, but the bigger lesson here is once you're in that crowd, it's not really a distinguishing point, and you have to present yourself a little differently out there. A furry con removes the risk of what if they hate furries, but adds the risk of what if I'm just convention wallpaper. In fact, you might have good luck going to a non-furry event like an anime or sci-fi convention and finding the furry-centric meetups there, especially if it's a local event and you can find local people to keep in touch with. And maybe this is more into the realm of tricks, but hey, you might be the most interesting furry they meet that day by default. Note this is also a cult technique to strengthen bonds between in-group members by surrounding themselves on purpose with people unfriendly to their cause. So I better not catch any of you abusing this. I'm not saying to engineer a crisis where you're trapped in a room with a small number of furries surrounded by people who don't like them, like some weird Saw trap.
I suppose you're wondering why you're here. I have placed you in this cage, blocked all cell signals, and surrounded you with thousands of teenage YouTube edgelords with military avatars and keyboards only capable of copy-pasting abusive comments. You have 60 minutes to form a shared Discord server with at least 3 RP channels running at the same time with everyone in this cage, or else we will allow the edgelords to meet you in person. Good luck.
Or to make an EMP that kills all cell activity while waiting in line. But just consider what you need to meet people. Or let me know in the comments what unconventional spot you met your friends at. Part 3. Be yourself, but work on yourself too. Okay, that sounded a bit harsh, not the intent. Stick with me here. You might note the irony of someone wearing expensive carpet online saying, be yourself. And believe it or not, that's kind of the point here. This is a character, a fursona, if you will, and sooner or later, the threat of heat stroke will force me to remove this and exist as a regular person. Inevitably, some aspect of Cheshi and the soulless husk inside this costume share something, but realize even with duality, there needs to be some separation. So what am I getting at here? Well, with fursonas, people have a character they can inhabit, and some people will want to interact with this fursona. Other people are going to want to interact with you, but sooner or later, you're going to have to be you, and that you needs to get to know them. So while you can have the brooding and mysterious backstory you want for your fursona, unless you're screening a film of your backstory at the con, please, 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 don't do that. On second thought, please do. I want to see how that goes. There's a real person they need to meet too. And as a parenthetical aside, please note that this might be my own personal bias coming into play, and there are possibly circles of people who are always on that operate out there. And yes, people in fursuits do often stay in character. I'm talking about the general plainclothes wandering about. I'm just saying that most furry chatter I see out there are about daily lives, not
Ooh, how are you?
But are you always in character amongst other furries? Well, let me know in the comments, I'm curious. So trying to open up about yourself a bit when meeting people is good too. What are your hobbies? What do you like at the convention? What are you looking forward to? And even better, asking the other person about these things. I briefly mentioned How to Win Friends and Influence People at the start, and that book is downright sociopathic about this. But it is a good point. Asking and listening goes a long, long way. If you really want to be friends with a person, sharing is a two-way street. And I know I'm guilty of this too. I'm guilty of conversational monopolization if I'm not careful. And in group settings, I generally try and dial that back. But seriously, it's just one of those little things you gotta work on in life. You don't want to sit there in the corner and say nothing and be a barnacle on the conversation, but you don't want to monopolize it either. Now, Mr. Carnegie is quite craven in their book. It comes across as pretend to be interested and people will become your loyal subjects. But for non-sociopaths, if you're actually interested in finding the right friends, you need to know about them as much as they need to know about you. So try and let people know who you are and try and find out who they are. And now I'm sure some of you are thinking, whoa, dude, big reveal. Now show the tricks to be super cool so we can laugh at your feeble attempts to explain being cool and popular. And I have some bad news for you. I got nothing there, nor would I want to even try and pretend that I did. While I'm sure you can level up the Riz, as the kids call it, Circulate 2023, you gotta operate with what you have at the time, and if that's not working, then some people see a convention as a good place to try and open up a bit more to push those boundaries. But, please don't try to be someone you're not. And please, for the love of... don't think being a movie protagonist brash asshole is a personality. Remember, Tony Stark's brash asshole dialogue is constructed by multiple writers, as is the scripted characters around him liking this brash asshole personality. In real life, this just makes you an asshole. I haven't seen this at a furry con, but I have seen this at other conventions, and all I can think is, dude, stop acting like you're interesting, and just be interesting. And be interested. Anyway, rant over. By all means, if you really are larger than life, you gotta be you, and maybe people will like it. Just remember that other people don't have to like that version of you. Now, speaking of sometimes larger than life characters, let's talk about the bigwigs, the celebs, and now it's time to tread a little bit lightly. Part 4, the popufurs. Full disclosure, I say this as a mere mortal here. Just check my view count and subscribers as of me posting this and you'll get the idea. However, I can also speak as someone who has previously been a visible presence in a fandom or subculture, and who has friends who still are. I get it. You see these people on your online feed. Their names and faces you recognize. They're often friendly and outgoing. You want to meet them, and unless they're in hiding, you probably will meet them. And by all means, say hi, introduce yourself, whatever, be social. But I'm not saying you can't be friends with these people, but I am saying that a convention, especially a big one, is probably the hardest venue to do so with them. Let's call on back to part 2. People at conventions are often trying to make the most of their time with their friends and at events, and if their online livelihood depends on capturing the event, some of that time will also be taken up by working. This isn't to say that you can't meet popular people, nor that you can't make friends with them. Just please, don't set an internal expectation here. And it's like, dude, they have 100,000 plus followers. Are you expecting that they all have to be best buds with every one of them? And I get it for popular online people. You can kind of feel like the getting to know them side is already out of the way. You've seen their likes, dislikes, mannerisms, personality, and everything else. But that doesn't mean they know you or that they feel they've opened up to you. I could go on for hours about parasocial relationships, but that's really its own video and a topic well covered by other folks on YouTube. Just remember that trying to jump in with them because you know them is probably just going to make them reflexively take a step back, and your feelings are going to get hurt. If there's 2,000 people at the event, and everyone else is trying to be friends with the same 20 people, maybe the other 1,980 people are a better thing to focus on building friendships with. Which brings me to the last part. Part 5, the grim meat-hook realities, as spoken by a much better author than I. There comes a point where some may return from an event. You enjoyed the activities, you spoke to many new people, and yet you still feel unhappy about it, or you feel bitter that you just didn't make any friends. I want you to think a little bit more about what you did that weekend and who you crossed paths with along the way to not making any friends. Did you have a good time? Are you sad that the event is over? If so, sounds like the event was worth it. Maybe even just as a fun break, or even a little growth moment for yourself. Think of it as a mini vacation. Maybe having a good time is the bar you should be trying to clear with the expectations for a convention. In the end, some weekends are a chance to get to know certain people better, some weekends are a chance to meet new people, and sometimes it's just, oh well, nothing clicked this time, but hopefully you had fun. And if you're upset about that, maybe some self-reflection's in order. Did you not participate and just kind of hoped that people would want to talk to you? I get it, being shy is a thing, but people might not want to approach you if they're afraid of bothering you too. Or did you blow off a conversation with some group because, wow, these guys are really cringe, or they didn't have a fursuit or an online fursona, or maybe you were interested in a different group of people. And that, my good people, is the grim meat-hook realities of what we say we want versus what we really want. The question you need to ask yourself is this: did you want to make friends or did you want to be popular? These things are not the same, and one often says they want the former while really expecting or pursuing the latter. And now it's up to you to decide who you want to be friends with, and you should obviously not befriend bad people simply because they want to be your friends. You are not obligated to be friends with anyone, but a little self-honesty over who you pass over goes a long way here. And often the hardest person to be honest with is yourself. And I say this not as some ever-knowing font of wisdom, but as, hopefully, a past victim of this mentality. I've most definitely chased friend groups, or somehow convinced myself that certain groups of friends weren't really for me, when in fact they were. I've also removed myself from bad friend groups when I have chased such groups, only to find out that that group wasn't a good friend group for me. Calling back to what I said before, if you expect popular and well-liked people to make friends with randos at the convention, then maybe you should consider making friends with randos too. Now, turning that around into a positive statement, if your goal is to be truly well-liked and popular, whatever that really means or gives you, your path will also involve you cultivating your own friend group of randos. And that starts with the little connections. The road to being popular and the road to friendship are not the same. Friendship doesn't start with you being the center of attention. It starts with the little moments you have between each other in fun times or sometimes in quiet times. And I can assure you from past experience, being a public figure or the center of attention generally does not lead you to the friendships that you want to have. So, in conclusion, I apologize if I've misled here. This video is less a series of magic tricks and more a series of understanding what you're up against, both at the event and in your own expectations. Go to conventions, do the events, have fun, try to get the little moments together. Make sure to try and connect with people, and the friendships that need to happen will happen, even if it's just with a nerdy weirdo like me. Anything I missed? Anything you want to hear more on? Any refutations that you can be mega cool with this one simple trick? By all means, let me know in the comments. Anyway, enjoy the conventions, good luck, and I hope you all come out of it with some wonderful memories and wonderful friends. Take care.